We're going to explore how to do unit conversions, and you can always convert units following a certain simple basic procedure. Suppose, for example, you want to convert miles per hour to meters per second. Let's take the case of a car that's going at a speed of 60 miles per hour, and we want to convert that to meters per second instead of miles per hour. We don't want to use the M for miles and meters. So that's 60 miles per hour. How many meters per second is that? Well, the first thing we do is we recognize that there are actually two unit conversions involved here. We have to convert miles to meters, and we have to convert hours to seconds. So let's take those one by one. In order to do any conversion, you must have a numerical expression that tells you how many of one unit is in exactly one of the other unit. So for example, I need to know something like 1 mile equals 1,601 meters. Now, this is not something typically you would need to memorize. This is something that would be provided to you, or you can look it up. So this is a statement of an equivalence. Both of these things are the same length. So I'm now ready to do my first conversion. V equals 60 miles per hour, and I can write it like that. And then what I want to do is get rid of the miles and replace that with meters. I'm always, when I do a units conversion, going to multiply by what I call a unit conversion factor. And the unit conversion factor, you can draw a parentheses and a horizontal line to have the two different units that you're working between. So the numbers that go on either side of this fraction are given by this expression which relates the two units to each other. So if I want to get rid of miles and replace it with meters, I look up here and I want my miles to cancel. That means I want the 1 mile in the denominator and then the 1,601 meters in the numerator. Then the units of miles cancel, and I'm left with a unit of meters per hour. And I have a new numerical value that is 60 times 1,601, and my new units are meters per hour. So for that part, I can just get the calculator out and say, what is 60 times 1,601? And that's 96,060. So that is 96060 meters per hour. Now I need to convert the hours to seconds. So to do that, I follow the same procedure, but I need to have a relationship between hours and seconds. Well, in 1 hour there are 60 minutes, and in 1 minute there are 60 seconds, which means that 1 hour is 3,600 seconds. So with that, I can then write my expression. V is 96,060 meters per hour. I'm going to multiply by unit conversion factor. And now the unit that I want to get rid of in my original value is in the denominator. That's hours here. So that means that this thing goes in the numerator of my unit conversion factor, which means that this one goes in the denominator of that unit conversion factor, 3,600 seconds. Again, the unit that I want to get rid of cancels out. I've got seconds in the denominator, which is where I want it. I now have units of meters per second. To get my final answer, I have 96,060 divided by 3,600, which is 26.7. So V is 26.7 meters per second. That's where the units that I've got left, and that is my final answer, having converted 60 miles per hour to meters per second. Then we can do a sanity check. Does that make sense? This number is about half of that number. That says that 1 meter per second is about 2 miles per hour, and knowing how big a meter is and how long a second is, that seems about right. In other words, we haven't made any mistakes of order factor of 10 or something like that. The basic steps for every unit conversion always are: identify the units you're converting between, write down an expression that has the old unit on one side and the new unit on the other side and have the same length or time or mass or energy or whatever the quantity is, but in those two different units expressed. Then write your value that you need to do a units conversion, multiply it by units conversion factor, which is always a ratio, a fraction. The numerator of that fraction and the denominator of that fraction come from this expression. Which value goes on top and which value goes on the bottom, you can figure out just by looking at what units you want to cancel and which units you don't want to cancel. If you keep track of your units carefully, you'll never make a mistake that way.